Hey guys, Heather here from Tye-Dyed Iguana, and today we are at our Crested Gecko breeder tank. This is where we have our little colony of adult Crested Geckos at our shop. So today we thought we'd take the opportunity to show you guys what to do with any Crested Gecko eggs you might find in your tank if you've got a pair of Crested Geckos at home, and just how easy it is to hatch those Crested Gecko eggs on your own. So let's get started. Alright, so we're going to kind of show you what we do in our tank. Because we have so many females in here, we can't always predict, when they breed or who has bred or anything. So we kind of have to search through their soil about every day to see if we find any eggs. Now what we do is we dig down. You can use your fingers, or you can use like a utensil or something, like even a spoon. You could use a spoon to kind of dig around, but you got to make sure you're very gentle and very careful, because if you do find an egg, you don't want to get it tossed around, because that can cause the embryo to detach from the egg, the inside of the egg, and possibly kill the baby. So you got to be careful when you dig around in your tank. Sometimes it can be really sneaky and dig down deep into the soil in places, like sometimes they'll hide it underneath the decorations. They'll dig down into deep spots, and you gotta really dig to try to find them. So if you've got a male and female in your tank, you should assume that eventually they will breed. Even if you might not see them breed, they'll usually do it at nighttime, and they usually lay their eggs during the nighttime as well. So you won't see it happen, but someday you'll magically have eggs appearing in your tank. Usually when they're fertile, they'll dig them down deep into the soil, and if they're infertile, sometimes they'll lay them on the surface. But most of the time, if you got a male and female, the eggs are fertile. Sometimes they might have a oopsie and lay it on the surface, but that usually doesn't happen, but it can. Now it's very important when you find the eggs to make sure they stay in the same position they were when you found them. So what we do is, because our tank is kind of far away from where we keep the eggs, we have this little cup that we use to transport them from this tank to the back where we incubate them in the back. So we make sure that we put them in here the right side up. You can also mark the eggs. You can use like a little Sharpie and make a little mark on the top of the egg. That way you know which side is facing up. That way if it gets jostled a little, you know to place the egg with the mark facing up. So that's a good idea to do if you're collecting your eggs. Also important to note that Crested Geckos usually lay eggs in twos. So if you find one egg, you'll usually find another one right next to it. Yeah, you definitely want to look for eggs in pairs. They usually don't lay more than two at all. So 2 is usually the magical number. Also, if you don't manage to find your eggs in time, because of the temperature which they incubate, sometimes they'll just end up with babies in your cage one day, and you'll be like, where did those come from? It came from eggs that they hid from you, that you couldn't find, and they just incubated on their own and hatched out inside the tank. That has happened to us before in this tank. It has happened to us where we just found random babies on the glass, and we're like, oh, that means we didn't find a couple of eggs in there. So that can happen. Alright, so say you got your eggs and you need something to hatch them in. Now we have some stuff that you can hatch your eggs with. You can use a small container if you only got like maybe a couple eggs to hatch. We use a bigger container for our eggs because we have multiple females, and we need a bigger container to put them all in and everything. So yeah, you'll need a container with some vermiculite. That's this stuff in here, and we sell the dry vermiculite in these cups, but we do sell these but without the vermiculite. Alright, for this next step we're going to show you what our little incubation cup looks like. So now you've got your eggs and you've got your vermiculite cup. You got to prepare it, you got to add water to it. We add lukewarm water to ours until it forms clumps. You don't want to overwater it or make it too dry. That way it gets enough humidity but not too much humidity. You just want to keep it a little bit damp. And then what you'll do is you'll place each egg into the vermiculite. You'll kind of nestle it in there. You see we just got ours setting down. And because we have so many eggs, what we like to do is we like to write the dates on them. Not only does that mark where the top of the egg is, it also tells us what day it was laid. That way we know when to expect it to hatch. Instead of doing that, you can also put like a little post-it note on here and say when they're laid too. But this just makes it more convenient for us so that we know which eggs are which and which were laid when. These were all found in our tank. And then once you put them in the cup and you've got them in the damp vermiculite, they actually incubate at room temperature. So you don't have to use an incubator for these guys. That would be way too hot. Yeah, our room temperature that we keep them at is between 75 to 78 degrees during the daytime. So yeah, they incubate at room temperature. So it's really easy. You don't have to worry about keeping them warm enough or anything. I mean, just as long as your room temperature isn't below that 70 mark, which I highly doubt it would be. So yeah, these guys will incubate at room temperature. And you'll notice that the ones that were laid in December, they're actually bigger than the ones laid like in February and January. These guys will actually get a little bit bigger as they incubate. As the baby grows, it kind of makes the egg get a little bit bigger. And the approximate time for these guys to hatch just depends on how cool or warm it is. During the warmer months, they take a less amount of time to hatch during the cooler months. For us, it takes about 70 to 80 days for our crested gecko eggs to hatch. That's a lot longer than bearded dragon eggs and snakes. So these guys, they take a little bit longer to hatch out from the egg. And then after you wait about 70 to 80 days, you'll probably notice the little baby crawling around inside the cup from one of the eggs. When it hatches out, ours usually hatch out during the nighttime. I don't know why, it just does. But sometimes we'll get some hatching during the daytime. But yeah, it's really easy. It usually, you know, it's room temperature. You don't have to do much to hatch them. And we actually had a baby hatch out this morning. I don't know where he is though.
Right there.
Oh, yeah. So they're really tiny when they're born.
My thumb compared to its head.
Yeah, it is super tiny. So yeah, we've got our little baby in his little newborn tank that we set up. We got a little branch room to climb on. We got some water in our pashy. So you gotta make sure they have a little bit of food available when they're first newborn if you decide to keep them. You don't want to keep them with the adults at all because the adults will happily eat them because of how small they are. And we keep them away from our other babies until they're kind of big enough to join them because they will pick on smaller crested geckos. So he's got to be by himself for a little while. But if you decide to keep your crested gecko, yeah, just make sure they stay away from bigger ones and you've got a little place set up for them. But if you don't want to keep your crested gecko babies, we'll always happily take any babies. Say yeah. Say yeah. If you have any babies that you don't want. But yeah, that just kind of shows you just how easy it is to hatch out your own baby crested geckos and what to do if you find some eggs in their cage and you decide, hey, I'd like to try to hatch some babies. So yeah, thanks for watching everybody, and we'll see you next time.